Hello everyone, and welcome back to Neopets, the Darkest Faerie. Inside of the ruined caves just to the north of it is this gigantic, very creepy looking chasm. Instantly, there's already just this huge atmosphere around this single area that we're going to cross over. I want to talk about it. So, just to know a little bit about me, is I like to make really weird comparisons that no one else will make. Especially when it comes to video games, because the games that I play are really weird, and it takes me a while to get to actually main releases and like things that people are actually talking about. Specifically, Dragon Age Origins. I compare this area, this chasm with the bridge around it, to be kind of like the deep roads in Dragon Age Origins. I get the same feeling of it as you're just going deeper and deeper and you just don't know what you're going to find. And in terms of like the mysteries surrounding this section of the game, it's even mysterious and creepy as we're just kind of going lower and lower and deeper. It's an atmosphere I honestly really like, to be honest. Just this unknown about what's beneath the earth. There's also those two things down there, but chances are we're definitely not going to be able to actually see what those are in really good detail, judging by Matrix spinning around, yeah, and a disapproving face on our tarmac, like he's saying to us, you know, that was a really stupid decision that you were definitely going to make. How dare you do that, you stupid idiot! So, let's head into where we need to go in order to find the keys to the lower dungeon. Welcome to the Oubliette. Just take a look at this map. Take it all in. It's the first impression that Oubliette gives to a lot of players is a huge feeling of dread. It's a fairly big dungeon that we're going to be going through. And for the sake of everybody else, there's actually going to be a lot of editing as we're going through here, including speeding up just traveling around. You're going to be seeing the entirety of my travels through the Oubliette, but just not at normal speed. Otherwise, we would be here for, well, maybe an extra 15 minutes. I originally went from liking Oubliette because of just the atmosphere that was surrounded by this place, unconditionally, to, I guess I'll say, a respect Oubliette for what it is. It's also, like, as I'm playing this more and more and later into my years, that I see that a lot of changes had to be done to this whole area that we're going through, from the ancient sewers to the ruined caves to what we're going to be seeing beyond here. But before I get into that, I might as well explain what we're doing actually in the Oubliette. So, on the map there are a bunch of small little colored dots, and each of those corresponds to a different switch that we're able to hold down with a relative pillar around there, similar to the crypts in the Werewolf graveyard. The other thing I'll also mention as we're going through all of these little areas is just the imagery that they were trying to convey in the Oubliette. They were really trying to make it faithful to what kind of an Oubliette kind of is, which is a dungeon which only has one exit, which is also the entrance, which is generally a trapdoor or a pit that you fall into. So some sort of vertical trap that you have to go down, and then you're stuck in here. Technically, the Oubliette itself doesn't really follow that because we just went through a doorway in order to get in. But the entire feeling of heading down into the Meridel Treasure Vault, that's definitely has an Oubliette vibe by falling into the hole into the ancient sewers from the Thieves Guild. Because we're not leaving until we find another way up. So anyway, back to the Oubliette. Our goal here is to try and find each of these switches in order to flip them, in order to make certain gates open so that we can get further into the Oubliette. The other thing that the gates will, the switches allow us to do is open up a whole bunch of different rooms, and depending on the rooms, they will either lead further into the oubliette, or, most of the time, will lead to treasures. There are a total of 15 treasures in the oubliette, and they all correspond to the Ruined Caves total. So if you're going about being diligent with checking each room, then you should have no problem in order to find all the 15 treasures. It's just having to constantly move the pillar onto each of the different colors is something that takes a little bit of time, and then having to navigate your way around the area in order to find out which is the one door that switch opens. Just when I'm running around doing who knows what, I have to go to a completely different section in order to find out where I need to go. So anyway, the oubliette as well, they really wanted to pin down the atmosphere of an actual oubliette, which, to me, with it being a Neopets game, is a little dodgy when it comes to, I guess, development. Because when you have things like Iron Maidens and torture devices, we've already seen images of potential torture from the Darkest Faerie herself in cutscene. But it's interesting that it would be left in here, all the different stuff that would be used to torture victims. It also gets me thinking about, well, the overall feeling of going and descending into an area like this. Because remember, we are technically having to go through 3 older castles underneath Meridel Castle already in order to get to where the Great Treasure Vault is. So in my mind, when it comes to the oubliette and what castle it's supposed to be connected to, I have a feeling that's connected to the second castle. Or the middle castle, since we're dealing with 3. The top castle being the ancient sewers. Since it's not on the map, it would be on the old Meridel Castle map. So that means there's really only one other castle that we need to go to. Except that the overall layout and construction of this section of the game, I feel like it's had a lot of changes. More than I originally knew about. But we'll just focus on the oubliette for right now, because there's a lot we could discuss when it comes to this overall place that we're exploring in our current adventure. Namely, I think they actually wanted to make the oubliette a little bit easier for players. They had to think about who was actually going to be playing this game, who was their demographic they were trying to aim towards. Because with an area like this, it really doesn't make me certain about who the age group they're trying to actually, match. Is it supposed to be rated E or is it supposed to be rated T? I feel like it's just balancing on that line. The big thing is that everything's color-coded, and in order to find where you need to go, most of the routes are color-coded. So, in terms of an old-fashioned oubliette, where it's a gigantic maze in order to find your way around and everything looks similar, here you'd never get lost. Now this switch right here for the red crown symbol here, this is the only one that's kind of out of place, because the only gate it opens is this one, this room here, which contains that supernova mote. Otherwise, there's no real reason for you to hold the pillar onto the red switch and you can move it onto the blue switch. And then we can actually make our move into the main part of the oubliette that we need to go to. The only thing I actually forgot to do, though, is actually hit the yellow switch. So I gotta go do that and get all the treasures there. The other thing about the oubliette that kind of bothered me a whole lot while playing it while playing it numerous times, is because the dungeon is really long in itself and there's a lot of things you need to do in the oubliette, I honestly kept forgetting why I was even down here. And that is, of course, like I said at the beginning, to get the keys in order to get to the lower dungeons, or what was called King Skarl's personal chambers. That line in itself feels like a very quickly made thing. Oh, and we also got our final inventory item, a dispelling potion. Dissipates any malevolent conjurations, pernicious abjurations, or sinister enchantments. It gets rid of curses, is what that means. You don't actually get cursed a whole lot in this game, as I certainly have not had any reason to use one. And another thing when it comes to just the coding of this game is status ailments are not a huge issue. Just switch between Tor and Roberta and any status ailment is removed. Don't have to worry about it. But yes, anyway, King Skarl's personal chambers, that line that I showed off in the last video, bothers me a whole lot because it definitely denotes changes in the development of this whole area very last minute anyways, because when you're trying to descend through multiple castles, why would a personal chambers of any kind be related to King Skarl at all? We'll be talking about that a little bit later. Anyway, that should be it. So we're going to head down to our blue section. The part of the oubliette that we're supposed to actually get to. Now this area right down here, which is kind of hidden underneath the map, it's really not clear what you're supposed to be doing down here. It's the only place that has restless spirits in the oubliette. The rest just have skeletons of all kinds. But they have a lot of restless spirits down here, and your first instinct is to actually just take them down one by one as you're moving around, trying to figure out if there's anything of note, anything useful in this area. And then randomly, all of a sudden, boom, the guardsman's keys are going to be in your hand. Because certainly that restless spirit did not drop them like, say, the Death Knight did back in the crypt in the Orylen graveyard. At least I didn't see it. But with that, we can actually leave the oubliette and head back down to the lower dungeons. Except, can you really? Because the game also doesn't communicate that very well either, where the door shuts behind you, so how are you ever able in order to get out? Sure, we can keep the door open for the blue doors, so most of the doors are open now, but how are we supposed to get out the way we came in? Well, let's answer that question anyways, since we're done with the oubliette. Yeah, at full speed, this was roughly about half an hour. So in order to get out of the oubliette, all you need to do is open the door. Not much of an oubliette all on its own, but we do have some visitors right at the entrance here like we did beforehand. We need to get rid of again. Well, we don't have to, but I might as well. Whoop. Did not want to change to Roberta. She's not prepared for battle right now. Alrighty. And there we go, all 19 ruined cave treasures. The 4 that are actually in this map, and then the oubliette. Excellent. I don't believe all of them are documented at any point, but when it comes to having 19 treasure chests and not a lot of them even having anything really interesting in them, I don't blame them. Now we can cross our bottomless chasm, head back down into the crypts, and we can open up, well, one of these 2 doors. It's kind of weird that you can open up both, but that's just because the map hasn't changed. Technically, we are on a different map, but we won't know that until we actually enter through one of the doors. I saw an enemy in there. Can he come out? Nope. There he is. Hey, come and fight me, sword. Come on. Come on, do it. Yeah, I'll deal with you. Sort of. Good. Anyway. Yeah, so the very bottom of the ruined caves actually connects and is overlapping the next map, which is the Knight's Crypts. Don't know why they would name these as King Skarl's personal chambers, other than being a last-minute addition in order to change something programming-wise. Also, maybe something that could be wink-wink unfinished. But anyway, the Knight's Crypts, actually, there's not a lot going on in them. This is a very small little map, and other than for going up to this door and through the second door, there isn't any treasures associated with this place, so other than fighting the occasional sword, really just go to the big room that is in the southwest corner of the map in order to continue on. I am not even kidding, like, it's 3 different wings. I will point to the attention of the banners that we have been seeing a little bit later on, having been connected to, say, a completely different castle that was right around here. Now, if I were guessing which castle we were still connected to, I would still say that we were connected to the second castle. You can see a nice statue commemorating something that was down here. Someone, anyways. And inside of this is something I completely forgot about when I was recording with the Where the Graveyard. Not just one Death Knight in the game, there's actually a trio of 3, but at this point they're really not hard in order to fight, since we have a very, very strong blade in order to deal with them. In fact, our strength was so much that the statue exploded. It exploded so hard that we actually get a new sword out of it. The Ancient Knight Sword. We don't get much of a fanfare for it, but hey, it's another upgrade for Tor. Even greater sword. It's a really sick sword, with all the designs on it. Technically has a blue hue to it. It's good. So we can run around here and smash some more pots all we like, or we can get prepared for going into even more darkness. Because beyond that save point is really just a big, huge black hole. Yeah. I will point out, though, before we head into that black hole, is that the Knight's Crypts map is a little bit off. Technically, we should be actually heading in where this banner is supposed to be. Strange. But anyway, see you next time, everyone, as we go into the black hole.